Dork back again, and today, my friends, like always, I'm coming at you live from my Data Cathedral studios here in always sunny Gainesville, Georgia, where frankly, it's hot outside. So unfortunately, I'm inside because I gotta water cool and air cool my all these CPUs I've got going on and GPUs. Today, I'm coming at you with Dork Cast episode 46, actually catching up to my age here soon in a couple of more years, which is kind of cool. Today, my topic is going to be context engineering. Man, I've heard a lot about prompt engineering, and frankly, I'm getting pretty good at that. But today it is context engineering. We'll get to that in a second, exactly what I mean by that. I've got a couple of guests with me. One is Michael Terenzi, and Michael is the founder and principal consultant at Terenzi LLC. I know y'all are multitaskers. This isn't the only thing in your life. Feel free to screenshot this. Go ahead and reach out to Michael right now in one of many ways. At least capture this so that you've got it, because in a few minutes you're going to say, man, I should have reached out to that guy. Um, Catch him. Uh, the link that you're going to want to, again, make sure you capture is basically terenzi.llc. And it's going to take you to his super cool website. We're going to be talking a lot about theory today and about products. So everything that you might like to help make your job more successful. Also have another friend, Jeffrey Goldberg. Jeffrey, if you look at him up on LinkedIn, which I know you will, he's got like a million titles. I'm just going to call this dude a hardcore developer. Jeffrey is the kind of guy that not only loves developing, he likes talking about developing. He pontificates about developing. And the smile that you see there in the picture is the one that you're going to get from him anytime you're talking about code. And I mean anytime. There's an awful lot of people that I try to save their time, and I'm like, oh, I got a partner that needs help with this, and they'll send me a 2-minute email, and they just want to go their way. More often than not, Jeff would say, oh, no, I don't want to answer that email. I'd rather talk to them face to face. And we'd arrange calls, and I'm like, this dude is super busy. He loves talking to people about coding. And so super happy to have you on there. The reason that I called this context engineering was a post that Michael shared literally 1 week ago. Blah, 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 blah. And he's got prompt engineering. I'm thinking, oh man, this is exactly what I'm doing, because I'm really good now and I can get a prompt to be fairly predictable in the results. And I can get like 3 out of 10 times I get the same answer. The other seven, it's close, but 3 out of 10, I can get pretty close. So I'm getting pretty good at prompt engineering. Michael's like, no, you need to be thinking about context engineering. Well, here's what I know about Michael. I've worked with Michael many times in the past. When I was with our healthcare team many years ago, when I first started, we often had business meetings up in our Raleigh office. And I would look forward to our breaks, not only because Mountain Dew was stocked in the refrigerators there, which was an awesome thing to me. That's the only place I've ever been work-wise that they just stocked the Mountain Dew, because they had some people that were a lot like me there. And I would run to Michael's cube and interrupt anything that he was doing because I loved the way he thought. He thought more like an entrepreneur and trying to envision things way down the road, but like, whoa, slow down, man. So super happy to have him on board. And we're going to talk about this subject, context engineering. So Jeff, I imagine as a developer, like me, you tried to hone prompts so that it could like actually produce predictable results and have it be repeatable, as opposed to, well, this time it sounds good and the next 99 times it's way off. What's your thoughts on this whole context engineering thing that Michael thinks is a big deal?
It's trying to make AI work in a deterministic fashion in a non-deterministic world. It's kind of like when you have a stateful application and
Yep.
you want it to work in a stateless environment. They you you have to start building controls around it. You have to work to teach it and give it the guardrails. Is something Michael and I have worked on for years, governance. You have to essentially provide the LLM and the model the governance to understand the material that it's working with
Okay.
so that it provides you with a consistent result. The problem with prompts, right, is you every time you go, even if you've got a context window that's built, the model can start to hallucinate depending on what point you've filled up the context buffer.
Mhm.
And so it starts providing you information, or it starts coding results for you, coding things that don't necessarily
Yeah.
match your specifications. So
Gotcha.
even Claude itself basically says, hey, there are some things that you can do that will help me provide you with more consistent, predictable results so that you're not necessarily always having to correct me or work in an ad hoc fashion. And that's, to me, what context engineering means on its face when it comes to working with AI.
Nice. My
Yep.
previous I've for like as long as I've been on any social media, way prior to coming to Qlik, have used the phrase context is king. And that usually means, hey, don't ask me one narrow question and ignore everything else that's going on around it. I have to take things as a whole, and often that kind of thing gets missed. Michael, how close are we, man? If we put our brains together, we can't put our hair together. That's not really going to help the cause. But if we put our brains together, how close are we to what you were thinking when you put this post out?
I think you're spot on, and it's more relevant, especially when you put your engineering hat on, or you're trying to build out a big project or associate multiple projects that might correlate or cross over. It doesn't really, it's not as relevant if you have like a one-off task or something like that. But for me, I've been building quite a lot these past few years, and I've learned the hard way, unfortunately. I mean, initially it was, articulate well, have good prompt engineering skills. But as you move from project one to two to three to four, and they all cross over, you lose a lot,
Hmm.
right? So then, and I purposely at first is I, I was building out a platform for sports video analytics and using AI with it. And I had it kind of verticalized. Like there was a website, the iOS app, the backend infrastructure, and I kept them separate on purpose. But you
Sure.
get to the point where you need them to all be aware of each other.
Yeah.
So this concept of having a brain behind what you're doing, what you're driving, has made all the difference, honestly. And it boils down to context. So what I've done, and what I do, at work, when I'm building personally, when I'm doing anything now, this is always front and center of what I'm doing. So I tell my system knows when it starts up and I start a new session. It's automatically fetching in its memory a lookup, like an index, and it knows that index lists, like, every project file, what they do, how they correlate. And so instead of it just starting out kind of wide out in the open, the world is your oyster, it can quickly and easily find what it needs to do to get the specific task done. And then as things evolve over time, it knows how to, go back, look up, and find things. And it's kind of like how you navigate the brain and make it really really focused. It is very helpful, especially when you run a session for a day or two, and it starts to get dumb, right? And you got to start a new session. You don't want to have to go back and copy and paste and repeat all that. You've got to train it to,
Yeah.
update itself, learn from its mistakes, and you do all this through context engineering. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I know for me, there was a time when I had to write code all by hand. And I would say, Jeff, I can't talk now. I'm in a zone. And that meant I'm 99 layers deep trying to figure out this knowledge graph of how everything relates. And as I've gotten older and I've lost some of the gray cells, it is a comfort at times using something like Claude with the orchestration to be like, oh my gosh, I can forget in my mind about this, but it's not going to do that. And so I love having the ability to have a much greater context that I can spin up faster than what it would have taken me in the old days where, hey, I just need quiet for like 4 hours
Oh
as I'm
yeah.
going deep, 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 deep.
Yep.
I mean, that ability to go deep, deep, deep in your own mind, you still need because you still have to correct things. It's just you can get there much faster than you ever could
The
before.
yeah, what you're describing is uh, the the efficiency of recall, right?
Mhm.
Your gray cells, you just mentioned it. You're replacing you're augmenting those missing gray cells with Claude memory or with skills, right? Or
Mhm.
things that you're building that help orchestrate that workflow. You're essentially designing a system, as Michael's talking about a brain. You're you're designing something that thinks the way that you do, that can act as, you know, I remember working in the world of Siemens, where manufacturing and digital twins help with iterations before you actually make large capital investments in
Yep.
building manufacturing equipment. You're effectively, now what you're doing is you're doing something similar now, where you're building your digital twin and you're constantly curating your digital
Hmm.
twin. I think it's really interesting right now where all of the noise and chatter, and I'm curious for both of you, right? Is everybody is saying, I'm deleting all of my skills. I'm deleting all of the things that provide this context in this memory that kind of identifies the model to me in the way I'm thinking, and basically building that up from scratch again.
Mhm.
What are, how are you in the work that you're doing, reconciling that? Because for me, I see that as a terrible and tremendous loss. There's so many lessons learned that
Mhm.
you're just basically saying, well, it's a new model and I have to presume that it's smarter. So,
Yeah, no, no. I can't afford to
Yeah.
be throwing anything away like that. However, just in thought, I have built my own personal new skills and ways of thinking about things. One of the things I share a lot is that if I can build something in Qlik, like a load script that's 50,000 lines long, everything is fully commented, there's comment fields, I can build master items. My skill wise is to not think about the app first, it's to think about the business data stewards first,
mhm.
capture their information, and then I can generate a lot of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You mind that keep going, Dalton. Sorry. When you're ready, let me know. I want to share some with you guys. Yeah.
I would love to have you share
Yeah.
something with me, man. Do you need to share your screen?
Yeah, I got it. I
Okay.
didn't know if you were done or
Michael,
if you
provide us with
yes.
some context.
I I will. Now I have to allow
He's got to be
security
the
settings.
engineer and find the share button.
So it's the simple things that are the hardest sometimes. Um, I am going to so you guys hit on a good point, right? I'm not a huge skill user. Tools, so tools and skills a little bit different, but skills I look at as something it's going to be repetitive. You give it you definitely you build it out to do things that are specific tasks, but they're repeatable and like things move so fast in my world. There are a few skill and granted you can maintain skills and make them better and stuff like that. But I usually use skills for things like token refresh or eh, like more things that I do a lot frequently that aren't going to involve me having to help it steer and navigate too much. I'm much more intimate, I would say, with my sessions. But it's because I have built a good brain behind the scenes, and I think, anyways. But that's my opinion on the skills. I don't trash them or use them enough to really. I'm not a hardcore skill guy, to be honest. I don't know. Jeff, do you use skills a lot?
I don't I have a few skills with some like projects that I built, and I think at first what I was doing is I was using skills because the idea was, oh, when you want to just do something, you work with the MCP, or you work with the chat prompt to basically say, go do this for me. And what I realized was, well, that's burning a lot more tokens than I can actually afford. So I changed my workflow to now what I do is I use planning mode more, and I
Hmm.
do more spec-driven prompt engineering. So I
Yeah.
prompt, it starts building out a plan, it asks me questions, it grills me, that sort of thing. It builds the plan doc, it puts that into the repo. So that becomes part of the repo's brain, right? And then if you're sharing that, if you're building a shareable resource, that kind of lends to the idea of having like the wiki type mindset. But what I really have started to do is I think API, CLI, MCP, UI. I think about it in terms of the different types of experiences and the personas that I need to create them for. The API is great because that represents the ground level. If all other interfaces don't work, I've got the API where I can actually like tell the model to go use these APIs, discover this API, and go use it. But then what I do is I build the CLI. And when with the CLI, that's where all of the logic of the commands, effectively what would be the skill,
Hmm.
Okay.
is stored. Because now what I have is not only a reference to something that's reusable, I can reuse that without token burn. Or if I want to integrate it into something like GitHub Actions, I can. Or if I want to go ahead and say to the LLM, well, I feel like burning tokens today, so go use the CLI. That CLI contains all the documentation that the LLM needs in order to actually do its job. And so, from a context perspective, it's way more efficient because, to your point, it's looking at the context in relation to it being a tool
Mhm.
versus some verbose document that it's, going to read some front matter at first, but then probably has to do a whole bunch of discovery, and that's going to eat up more. It's going to cost me more in terms of the work I have to do, and that's also really an important part of this context engineering story, I think.
Yep. And one thing I just want to throw out there. So when we're talking about token consumption and I know the costs are they're not getting any cheaper. So now people are a lot more aware of how they're using tokens and you want to use the latest models for this and that. I'm honestly what I do, similar to what you were just talking about, Jeff, is I plan it out and orchestrate with the best model available. Like in today it would be Fable. Who knows what it'll be, 2 months from now. But I make it very clear every session. Like you're the orchestrator. You're gonna govern this session. If you need to delegate to sub-agents, use Opus wherever possible. And it's really helped stretch my token consumption. That's just one tip of advice I would throw out there. Yeah.
On that tip, I found something either on LinkedIn or just searching on the internet. You can set Claude up if you're using Claude to do Opus plan. So what it does is it uses Opus for planning and then immediately goes to Sonnet for building. And that
Yeah.
way, there's efficiencies in
Nice.
or economies you can achieve. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. It's
One of the
good.
things that you went through kind of quickly, Jeff, that I think I want to highlight for people. You talked about APIs, you talked about CLI. I think a lot of people tend to think of an API as the programming interface, and they think that's, for hardcore coders, and they think the user interface is what users would use. And I think part of all this coming together these days, and that I've loved since the onset of Qlik Sense, I did an awful lot of shrink wrapped software before, literally shrink wrap with floppy disks and diskettes and DVDs and all that kind of thing. And your product was what was in the box. Like you literally was what was in the box. Qlik Sense really never had a box from day one. It was an open API. Everybody could, consume it or extend it easily with those APIs. And yet, for 11 years, most people look at the screen and think bar chart, pie chart,
No, it
visualization,
was ahead of the game. It
right?
really was
And,
looking back and
yeah, so
looking back at go ahead. I
now
got
I was
on
going to
the
say,
screen
like,
looking
you
back.
kind of skipped over that really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
And the foundation for this has been laid for 11 years, almost 12 now, with Qlik Sense. And I've loved that. And
You make a
so,
really good point, though, Dalton. And this is something that I think this is where, with AI and LLMs, and then we'll let Michael jump into, the governance dashboard, because this is bringing back all the great feels for me. Is it has been considered, and it call it cultural, call it just the mechanism of how the work is done in Qlik, is it's a visual medium. So you're always, people gravitate to that visual experience. When it comes to the APIs, I think it was looked at as, well, this is for a hardcore developer and that's not the target. The reality has become that it is an interface,
mhm,
just like a user interface. And now more so than ever, the consumer on the other side doesn't really care about the visuals, right?
correct.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that AI is doing, like Claude. And if you've got Claude in your Chrome browser, or you're using ChatGPT to scrape websites and stuff like that, it can do a lot, working with that visual medium. But give it an API, give it a CLI, and now it can really, really cook, because it understands those primitives. It understands, uh, it it has the persona
Mhm.
of a developer, and that translates into why we need to be thinking about these APIs as first class resources, just like we have traditionally with the visual medium that we're looking at on the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. They are. Hey, I'm gonna jump into this real quick just so I can pivot away. And I have very bad manners, guys. So we just kind of jumped straight into it. But I wanted to say it is absolute thrill to be on this with you guys. It's been a long time. So thank you. Yeah, this is so this has evolved a lot, I think, into ultimately, you can kind of roll this up into maybe we'll talk about MCP here in a few minutes, but the governance dashboard for Qlik Sense. I remember Jeff, Jesse, it was a whole team of people trying to put this together. A lot of different skill sets, a lot of iterations, and we did it, and it was awesome. But this is my open source inspiration here for what this has evolved into. But kudos for that. It was great times. Real quick, back to context. This is, Dalton, you were talking about, graph databases and stuff like that. Like I wanted to visual all this. This is like 6 months old. This would actually probably take me another hour to generate with what I have today. But this is how everything that I'm working on is associated visually.
Sure.
But because I've got the brain set up and all of these things are, properly labeled and indexed, if I have a task that I need to go into like Cloud Run services or something like that and associate it with a monolithic processor, um, my agent's going to know exactly where everything is associated with those nodes or that aspect of the project or how that associates with the iOS app or any of that other stuff. So it's really important, especially if you're doing multi-project development, to build context, build a brain, and give your tools what they need to be successful. And that actually ties directly into Qlik Answers in a lot of ways. So I don't know if you guys have played around with building out like robust knowledge bases in Qlik Cloud, but you're going to get a lot better context and answers. And when you combine that structured data with that unstructured data, man, load that knowledge base up with your markdowns. Give it a README file or an index file. Explain how the measures work, how the personas work that are going to be using it. And really, really important to build out that knowledge base. It's kind of the same thing that we've been talking about, but on a Qlik Cloud level, right? So just wanted to throw that out there and share those
That would
things
be
with you.
worth
Yeah,
its weight in gold
yeah,
just as its own little session for sure for
yeah,
people. They're like, I need to do this. Like, hey, don't think about the app isolated from your documentation, right? Because you will have things in the documentation and your notes and chicken scratch that are going to help in the grand scheme of the entire app.
yeah,
Great,
yeah.
great suggestion there, Michael. I'm glad
That's
to see you actually have some legitimate stuff there.
it's amazing. And you get a big difference because like I know when you've got a complex data model and you go to there's multiple ways to use Qlik Answers, but if you just tap into the structured data aspect of it without any context and start asking like give me aggregations across different hierarchies or different things, you may or may not get the right answer. You're going to get a lot better answer if you combine that data model with a lot of unstructured context. So
Yeah,
really
man.
important. Yep. Um, you want to pivot to MCP a little bit? You guys want to talk about that because it's
Let,
pretty.
Well, I think it's natural where you're going, right? If you come back to the knowledge base in which we were just talking about regarding structured and unstructured and the idea of context and memory, and tying this to what Dalton was just saying about where's the product now? Is the product the visualization, or is that just part of the outcome, right? And how much time are you spending now doing app development versus context engineering? Because with context engineering in Qlik, right, using the knowledge base for unstructured, using a data model, a Qlik Sense data model or Qlik Analytics data model for the structured portion, you now have the foundation to provide the MCP that you're talking about to help individual users self-serve. And we'll get into the security piece in a moment, right? Or I guess a little bit later, because I know Dalton, you said you wanted to talk about that. But just on its face, you've changed the the interface with which an individual user can, to co-opt another term, harness that
Mhm.
information and produce an outcome that's value that's personal to them and then shareable. The next challenge becomes deterministic in that regard so that it becomes repeatable.
yep.
But I think that's part of what you're going to be showing us with regard to what you've built.
So
Yeah.
now let's back up just a little bit. I've got a lot of videos on Qlik's MCP, and I think customers and prospects have probably seen an awful lot of different things about it. Our cloud MCP is not what you're talking to here. Is that
Well,
right?
so, but actually, it is. But
Okay.
can we maybe some people aren't really familiar with what MCP is, right? It's essentially I like to think of it as a middleman that understands what you're trying to talk to it as or about and what your goals are on the back end. So it's kind of like in the United Nations, you've got all these delegates from all these different places around the world. They all speak different languages, but they all have to make a resolution or something together.
Okay.
And they've all got their little headpiece on, and there's a translator, right?
Yeah.
Like the person from Australia is trying to talk, and it's being translated to the person from China, and they're only able to understand each other because there's a translator happening live in real time that
Okay.
knows what one person is saying and is telling the other person, right? I
That's a
think
good
that
analogy, man. I like that.
that's yeah, that's kind of how I look at MCP in normalized terms. I don't know, Jeff, do you have
I think that is
yeah?
We're totally
Superb.
going to steal that for our intro slides, Michael.
Do
It's
it.
a it's a great it's a great representation uh of what an MCP provides.
Awesome. And okay, good. So what we're able to do with MCP servers, and now just to take it up a notch, is everyone's talking with their LLMs, and they're trying to get it to do things. Um, you can do it the easy way, or you can do it the hard way. Is the way I look at it. If you're trying to go at a system that has a lot of different APIs, like a mature, sophisticated engineering system, like I would say Qlik Sense has got it. Qlik Cloud, they were built kind of API first mindset, but there's different APIs for all kinds of different things, and an LLM, if you didn't have any context around it, would probably go out automatically to the help section, try and figure out, what APIs to use for what, burn a lot of
Mhm.
tokens, and maybe it would do it again or it needed retry. MCP is basically encapsulated that so that it knows better how to get to the goal. So there's a Qlik Cloud MCP server, and back to Jeff, a point that you made, like we're using the Qlik engine like at its core now, but you can use the Qlik Cloud MCP and now the Qlik Sense MCP server to get into an app's data model or its hypercubes. You can pull that data out with the MCP server and you can render it however you want. And
Mhm.
so here's an example. This is using Qlik Cloud MCP, but I'm pulling out hypercube data for some metrics that I've got defined and governed, which is a whole nother Dork Cast, Dalton. But I can play around with it. Like give me a P&L flow by segment. It's going to pull it in and it's going to render that data model with my own local chart models. But
Okay.
it's using that governed Qlik data. And so that's just one example of what you can do with Qlik Cloud MCP. Same thing with Qlik Sense, which is brand new this week. So I don't know if we want to pivot to that, but I
Well, I
was
like
yeah,
what you've kind of done
yeah.
there. And I do want to focus on this just for a second while we're on the screen.
Hmm.
Um, you weren't starting with a prompt and a question. You were starting with, let me go look at metrics that are
Yeah,
governed,
yeah, yep.
figure out the right chart type that would show that type of data, and let the user pick that versus even having to prompt. Is that,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's
I mean,
using
that's new,
MCP to
man.
do it.
Like
Yeah.
that's new to me to see that perspective. And again, if I go back to how I introduced you, man, dude, I admire the way you're always thinking 5 steps ahead, not just trying to implement something everybody else is on today. This is a great concept. I
Well,
like
thank
it.
thank
And
you.
then
It
at the
all boils
bottom,
down to governed metrics, Dalton. It's
yeah,
all about governed metrics. Yeah.
I'm all about governance. And then at the bottom, you actually generate, hey, here's what you would have typed in a prompt.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is a whole this is a monster in and of itself. So
I
I've
love
got
it.
a I've got a whole metrics registry. It's actually tied into multiple platforms here. It's going to ping it back in a second and give me a live read. But
Okay.
if you've got governed metrics and you know what they should be, and you've got a canonical source that's going to drive the comparison, there's no reason you can't have Qlik Sense and Qlik Cloud and whatever else you want to plug in, all relaying back to let you know your system's actually up to date and reporting the right information. But you can't do it if you've got a mess of metrics. So
Yeah,
it's you gotta build the foundation. But once you have that, man, you can really get a hold of your systems and make sure they're accurately reporting. So,
love it.
yep. All right.
And so now that was with Qlik Cloud's MCP that is
Yeah.
released in GA,
Yep. Yeah. I'm just doing a visualization exploration with those same governed metrics here.
or Susie
Yep.
works at an organization that, for any number of reasons, may still be working on Qlik Sense on-prem. She's drooling, Michael, to be able to do this kind of thing. And you've actually done something to try to help her.
Yes. So it's funny. Going back to Qlik View when Qlik Sense came out, right? So I've been around a little while. Um, Qlik View started to get less and less love, but a lot of people loved it, used it. It is great, and I still work with people that use it, and I miss it in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But then, things change over time in tech. It's fast. And so now we've got Qlik Cloud. And, the focus has definitely been on SaaS and cloud. And, I wanted to give some love to the on-prem Qlik Sense users, developers, administrators out there. And so I open sourced an MCP server for Qlik Sense. And it's not the first one by any means. There's actually there's another project or two I think out in GitHub, but this one it was focused more on securities and security and tooling, which I think it's the now you can do all the things and you can do it without having to depend on like a certificate, for instance, where if you got the cert, you could pretty much do whatever you want. And so there's a governance aspect to it here, which uses JOT tokens from a security perspective. But there's 44 tools. You can do anything from developing, and I can show this live, demo. But you can develop, you can administer. So if you have reload tasks that are failing, if you want to check your engine health, basically anything that you can do in the APIs, we've made it a lot easier to do with the MCP server. So you can create apps, you can create sheets, and this is my favorite one, having been up on a lot of late night phone calls, troubleshooting issues, you can now walk back and investigate issues quickly, faster than you ever could have before, because we look at the metrics, how they're calculated, what's behind the scenes, the load script, what data connections, is everything there? And it walks back. Do these depend on transform and extract apps potentially? You can really leverage it if the foundation is right to go after anything, really.
Nice. Now, before we get too deep into this, we meant, I alluded to some people have reasons, right? Sue may have all kinds of security reasons why she has not gone to the cloud.
Mhm.
Jeff, should we take Michael's word for the fact that this MCP can be secured? Or are you pretty confident in the security model that this would go through, that Sue should feel comfortable that this could be used in her on-prem environment, even with her own on-prem LLM?
So I think what's really unique about Qlik with respect to how identity management and then access control to capabilities and the data itself is implemented, right? We talk about the trusted data and that is really so important. But then making sure that people have the correct access to that trusted data and can do the things against that trusted data so
Mm-hmm.
that, again, bring this back to context. Everything that Michael's been talking about here in terms of working backwards and troubleshooting lineage issues or anything like that, that's all additional context that is sitting there as metadata that lives within the platform. And that in and of itself is secure. How Qlik does this, regardless of whether or not it's our client managed product or the client managed product or the cloud product. And I should say, full disclosure, I am an employee of Qlik and I am product manager for the platform. So if I say our, it's
Mm-hmm.
because I am duly employed and grateful for that. The What's special about the way Michael has built his MCP solution for a customer who needs to be on-prem, and how the MCP solution that's built for the cloud is constructed is it's using your identity. And because it's using your identity, when you connect to Qlik through the MCP server, it's just another interface. It's like going into an app. It's like going into whatever the access control and rights you have to features within these platforms exists, it's inheriting all of that without any additional effort. There's no real additional work that has to take place outside of however you've already established the governance framework within the QMC, if it's the on-prem solution or the admin console. And then moving forward, when you get into analytics and you talk about, what we call section access, which is row level security, that is that you're getting all of that for free out of the box. So not only do you have all of this governance and context available to you, right? Because you're building these uh, models, you're building these all these analytics
Mhm.
capabilities. You also, without any additional effort, have a new interface for your users to be able to access it without having to do anything from a security perspective.
So for Sue's benefit, and Sue, if you're actually like a real person, that awesome. You'll love that I'm calling you out. There's bound to be a Sue somewhere using Qlik, and she's uh, I'm singling her out. If you go through this and you're asking about data, you're going to see the same data that you're allowed to see in Qlik. But if I came in there and I was restricted and I'm only allowed to see data for the West, us doing exactly the same thing, we're going to see the same kind of results we would see if we were using the visualization part of.
And end-to-end trusted data governance, all the way from the point that you authenticate to the platform, however it is that you authenticate as you,
Nice. I love it.
to the
That
to the
Yep.
point of the data itself, right?
I'm going to
And
have to share this with marketing. They can copy that phrase you had, and trusted data governance.
yeah. And I think to your point, Sue could be, Sue in accounting. Dalton, you're Dalton in sales. And you can both use these tools to solve your problems because you're going to, and this is what has made Qlik great for many, many years, is the purpose-built solutions that rely on that trusted foundation. And when Michael is talking about governed metrics that are centrally stored and governed, but then proliferate across the different resources and applications that are available to customers so that you're getting the same number, whether you're Sue in accounting or Dalton in sales.
Yep.
And then on top of that, whatever the access control is, all the way down to the data level, that is just part of the overarching Qlik experience. So you build
Nice.
it once and you
Yep.
reuse it anywhere.
Nice.
Michael, I'm stealing your thunder, so
No, no, this is
Yeah.
great. I think you probably put that into better terms than I could have. I always lean on Jeff for security conversations. Anyways,
You and me both,
he's a
brother.
master. He's a master.
if you
But
guys just
yeah,
watched the videos, then it wouldn't be a problem. You'd be able to be as conversant in it as I am.
RTFM, right?
Yeah. All right.
Um, no, it's huge, and so that's the underlying foundation. So I'll share my VS Code here in a second, but it's important because you don't, as an enterprise, you don't want to have to deal with multiple people just having full access
Right.
or having to go through building another security layer for something like this if you open it up. It's really important to know that your user is the same user that would log into the hub, right? In either environment. And that's how this is set up. And although the Qlik Sense MCP server, it can do mutations and edits and creates and deletes, it's read only by default. So, like the first time you get it plugged in and spun up, you're not going to be able to do any of the mutations. You gotta turn those on. So it's a configuration aspect. So, try and make it as secure as we can here. Yep.
So
So
you're saying, Michael, on your tool, you actually have an additional layer of security for the CRUD aspects of
yeah.
the tool that way end users who may have the ability to, as we classically talk about it in Qlik world, self-serve, you know, chart creation or sheets or 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 new master items or whatever out of the box with your tool, they don't have that capability. There's actually that extra layer that you've provided. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, try to make it easy, right? Everything should be easy these days.
Well,
And but trustworthy. Yeah.
easy and control, right?
Yep.
What customers are looking for and what breeds trust is this aspect of being able to control these pieces so that you've thought about that as well, I
Hmm.
think is really great.
Hang on one second, guys.
All right.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll ask him. Hang on one second, Sue. Hey, Sue was calling me. She wants to know, like, she wants this like now. What would be the process Sue or, somebody like Evan might go through to actually try to get this thing running?
That's a great question. So I it's it's a little technical to set up. So if you're not familiar with like how to set up virtual proxies in the Qlik Sense environment, it might be a little harder. So that's when you give me a call or anyone out in the space. It's pretty well documented. You can actually do it's registered too with npm
Okay.
JS, and so you can literally just do an npm install for it. It's on the GitHub
So
project as well.
when you say open source,
Mhm.
you mean like you've done this work, you've put it out there on GitHub. Sue could just download it if she can do everything by herself, she could.
Mhm.
Or Sue or Evan could reach out to you and try to have you help them with those steps that might be a little bit out of their bailiwick.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not comfortable with it, like definitely give me a call or someone a call to help. But if you've got if you've got an Evan who's done this a million times, Evan should have no problem setting it up. So with the Jot, there's a when I say Jot, I mean JSON Web Token JWT. So it's an authentication method you can set up in Qlik Sense. It's what driving the security. So essentially, there's two ways you can use this. You can use it as kind of I'm just using it for me. I can do whatever. Here's my trusted stuff, and you can hard code it and just use it all the time. Or if you wanted to set it up at the enterprise level, what you're going to need to do is have an authentication mechanism that is trusted by the Qlik backend
Mhm.
that's going to be able to authenticate your users and then issue them the JOT token that says this is who they say they are. So it's got to be trusted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That
for
sounds
your
like a plan.
tool,
Yeah, I'd be the guy that'd be calling you, man.
yeah. So, but Michael, I think So if Dalton's Sue and I'm Evan, I think
Mhm.
what I'm hearing you say is that if I'm using something like Okta or Microsoft Entra, and I already have that set up on my Qlik Sense client managed install, I can create another application registration in those solutions, connect that to the Qlik Sense MCP that you've created, and now what I've effectively done is provided the right authentication into the MCP tool or the MCP server that you've created that will also provide the access into the Qlik Sense environment, and the handshake between the two
It's trusted.
will trust the connection and satisfy any of the access control requirements between the two.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Cool.
So yeah, yeah. There's other ways that you can authenticate to Qlik. You can do certificate based header. I think Jot is probably the best for this use case, especially if you're an enterprise and you want to enforce the security layer you've already set up for the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's not like it's a, hey, just create this thing and everybody gets to use it and it's just logging in as Dalton. Right?
Right, right. Yeah, we don't want to do that.
No, no. Um, so that's fantastic. So let's say that, Sue calls me back here in a minute and says, hey, if I call Michael, how long would this like realistically take?
I mean, less than a week. Probably a week. If we did it, so I wouldn't want to just set it up and then walk away. Like, hey, the green light's on. All right, good luck. There would probably you would want to do some enablement. So you would run through some use cases, leave some material, but like, a week max.
Nice, man.
If
Nice.
if me and Evan are together and have a lot of espressos, maybe a day or two. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Gotcha.
yep,
But yeah, but we're not
not
talking.
long.
I mean, this is
Yep.
it is secure. It will get them the kind of things that they might be looking at, either videos that I put out that they're drooling over, or they see some of my recent posts about things that I've done with MCP. They could be drooling over. They don't have to keep drooling, right? And if they've got the chops like an Evan, Evan could spin this thing up and be working and be secured. One of the things that I would ask you guys as a follow-up, usually we just, hey, I'm going to throw a video out, blah, 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 right on social media. When I put the video out, I will tag you guys, obviously. Jeff, you mentioned some security videos. Um,
Oh, they're really old at this point.
that's okay.
Um,
I don't know if you had more hair back then, but that's okay.
um,
Like if it explains maybe the jot technology or how these proxies, how it could tie into other things, that'd be great. And Michael, if you could then include your link to the GitHub for this, or is that GitHub link already on your Terenzi.llc site?
It's on the LLC site, and
Cool.
I'll send you a link as well when we get
Nice.
done.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I could imagine a whole lot of Susan, a whole lot of Evans, and a whole lot of every other name under the sun saying, I want to take a look at this thing.
Mhm.
And again, the neat thing is, it is 4 year on-prem. It helps you. That does not take away from all the other things that you have the ability to do in Qlik Cloud. That is not what Jeff and I are saying. Like, stay where you're at because you can do this. It's if you're in that environment for a reason, or you have to have your LLM local, and those are restrictions you're living under, at least for now, while you're looking at other things, then this is a solution that'll get you going. And you can start looking at those forward future thinking things. Again, I think from Michael's perspective, he wasn't saying, hey, I'm going to give you a white chat box and you can just prompt engineer your way to success.
No.
Um, Michael's fundamental belief is more, it shouldn't have to involve the prompting because that is probably not going to be predictable, where it's just randomly trying to figure out measures based on, numbers and adding things up. It is built based on the governed metrics. All right, list me all the tasks that have run this week. Ooh, man. I want you to go list my tasks that I'm running through our cloud data integration.
Ah,
Tell me what tasks use the most calls.
I I had to make sure our session state was still good because it's been probably an hour since I checked in. Yeah, time's out. So
Nice. Okay.
yeah, so, what I've asked it to do is go back into the system, look at our reloads tasks and what their statuses are,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So it says I've got one here. It's called ops demo nightly reload is the one failure.
Okay.
Okay, let's say so this happens all the time, right? Can you investigate why I can't spell why the one task failed? Let's see. So you'll see as it's kind of running through this, it's going to start using its own the MCP tools that it's got available. So it's going to get the reload log for that task,
Okay.
and it's going to evaluate kind of what's happening under the hood for that reload. And there it goes, root cause found. Now it's usually not quite that quick or that easy, but for this is a demo. It looked in the load script and it's found the root cause. It cannot open a file. So it says the script's load statement is looking for a CSV. The CSV is obviously not there. So what you got to do to fix it is get that file where it needs to be, and run the reload,
Nice.
right?
I tell you what, instead of typing that complex thing like, can you help me explain this? It'd be much easier if I just woke Jeff up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day.
Oh
And
yeah, he would love that.
I'm gonna throw it over the fence.
Who says
Not in my house.
who says I'm asleep?
Uh,
Uh-oh, we're losing your screen there.
I
I'm
think
sorry.
I
I'm
think one
gonna
thing
put it
that's
right
important.
back. Yep.
I think one thing that's really important though is you're showing this, but Michael, we've been chatting a little bit over the past few weeks, and you've got some real stories, some real customer stories, and I think you
Hmm.
posted something about it today on
Well, that
LinkedIn. At
was
least
that
it's an
was a
example.
demo environment, but it's the same story.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And anyone, there's so many stories, Jeff. This one in particular, I think is pretty common, because I hear it a lot at work, at, like, my real job. So you have, finance organizations love to use Qlik because you get data from a lot of different sources,
Yeah.
right? And you can do it all in Qlik so much better. Not to pick on other platforms, but I've just seen a lot of success in finance. And so, there's this thing they have to do every month. It's called a close, and you got to close the books. Everyone that's a company has a finance department. They're all closing books.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, you've got to reconcile numbers, right? And if the numbers don't match up, well, you got to find out why. And that, my friends, is where this is really powerful. So, and this is all plugged into. I've got a massive demo environment with tens and hundreds of millions of records. But let's say I have a finance close dashboard, right? And someone called me at 2 a.m. and it's like, hey, we're supposed to close tomorrow. We've got $50 million imbalance. Why? And so I can now. This is so beautiful. And if you have hybrid environments too, I'm waiting on this to run. Like a lot of customers have on-prem and Qlik Cloud, right? And we're talking two different MCP communications now. It is really, we're at the point now where it's also capable to put an orchestrator on top of those and find out what's happening between the two environments. And if you've got other platforms, like, as long as you're set up and you've got good context around the tasks that you're asking it to do, you can really go places a lot faster and with higher quality than you could have in the past. And so this thing is actually doing a full-fledged investigation here. So why was there the mismatch? It's going out to the master measures
Okay.
that are in the dashboard. It's evaluating the expressions. You can see here, I've got some set analysis happening. It's the sum of an actual scenario for a specific period, or sum of the amount for an actual scenario in a specific period. It didn't use forecast, it used actual because it knows what it's doing. It's going in to create a hypercube in the memory, specifically to investigate with, because now it knows how to
Okay.
request the data out of the hypercube.
Right.
Then it's going in to find the app lineage, right? What is actually building this application, and then it's going to get the load script. And it's walked through all of this without me having to tell it. And it says, hey, it's found a root cause. Here's the story. We've got a QVD. It's a revenue close QVD. It's actually it's been concatenated and loaded twice. So it's explaining, to the penny, this is the mismatch, right? And
Wow.
and think you could do this across hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of different scenarios
Yeah.
out there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome.
Things that somebody put in the script for a one-time demo or a test, and then they end up not commenting out or whatever the reason may be. And Jeff is a great developer. Calling him at 3 a.m. and having him try to find that would be hard by hand. Jeff would never make that mistake to begin with, but
Gosh,
yeah, yeah, you know.
let's
Um,
not let's not embellish too much, okay? You, hardcore developer, okay. Never makes a mistake in any of his code. Yeah, that's probably a bit too
Yeah.
far. I mean, the reality is bugs are going to happen, right? And that's just part of software. And whether that bug is because you're building a general purpose piece of software like Qlik, or you're building a specific solution to help your finance close, right? Or you have a process,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
you're working and you're writing a load script. These things happen.
Yeah.
And one of the things that these, LLMs are just exceptional at is finding the needles in the haystack in
Hmm.
less time. And, you know, you just pointed out another use case, dead code, something that was added because, you know, Evan was doing a demo to show Sue the power of the MCP. And for whatever reason, Evan has access to the production application,
Yep.
right? It happens more often than you think, and not just at small companies. It happens at
It,
really, really big ones too.
don't tell anybody, guys, but just yesterday I put an exit script section and I moved it up to test something and
Yeah.
I did not move it back and
Uh,
wondered why I was not getting new data for the other things.
we have all been there, Dalton.
Yeah.
Uh,
But then
All
you
right.
turn and look at it and you say, that is such a cool feature. I'm so happy that I can do that. But it
Yes.
takes you like 3 hours to find out that that's what you
Yeah.
did.
mhm, mhm.
I just
Yes.
I just want to celebrate the wibbling, the finagling.
Do you see what I have it doing, Dalton?
I used to play SimCity a lot, and I loved the reticulating splines and all. Like nobody wanted to wait the 5 minutes for the app to come up, but man, they just had some funny things going on to keep your mind busy.
Oh
And
yeah.
I love watching some of the ones that it does. Anyway,
It's pretty cool. It's entertaining, and they refresh the verbiage every now and then too. So it's pretty fun. I while we're talking, let's definitely keep talking. But while we're talking in the background, I've asked it to build an app from scratch, call it Dork Cast, and build out a sheet with a decent UI using Qlik Dork theming. And then I told it to publish it because um, I need to be able to see it. Let's publish it and then post it to and give me the hyperlink when it's available. So
there's KPIs with the bow tie in the background, dude. I'm
I
gonna be
have
loving that.
I have never. This is honestly like probably the dumbest thing to do on a demo, but I haven't never done this before. So we'll see what it comes up with. If it exceeds our time together, I'll shoot you a link.
Nah, man.
But
We're
it,
gonna do Spelunky. Yeah, there you go.
so this will be interesting. Hopefully,
Really.
it got your colors and stuff right. We'll see. Um, but yeah, so back to context, right? It's it's not about prompt engineering anymore as much as I think it's about context. And if you build it right, and you understand kind of how to navigate things, it makes life a lot easier in today's uh, prompting world, right?
Mhm.
I think it
And
comes
that's,
back
I
to
think, yeah,
right tool for the right job.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's, like I say, the way I use it is the fact that Claude, and I love working in Claude, and I'm not getting paid a cent from Anthropic, but feel free to throw me some Mountain Dew or Snickers bars if you see this.
Yeah, some tokens.
Um,
I know.
I love the fact that it can keep much more in memory than I can, and it can help me spin up what I'm thinking really quickly. I can even, say, hey, what did I say yesterday? I wanted to not forget. And
Hmm. Hmm.
it'll tell me this is what you said you didn't want to forget yesterday. Um, but yeah, it can spin up so quickly. And I think the really neat thing, Jeff, and I know that you said you're in, the product team. You've had your hand in the APIs for a very long time, right? And I am so happy to finally see the day come where people realize that Qlik Sense isn't just a pie chart vendor. It those APIs and the hypercube, and we could spend a lot more time talking about that. Your screen kind of flipped out again
Yeah,
there.
I've got to flip to the browser. Sorry, it's done.
Finally seeing people realize like, hey, if we're gonna do AI on top of stuff, man, the associative engine and the state engine that Qlik has is going to get us to some really, really good answers.
The
Um,
the the emergence of APIs as first class because of
mhm,
AI, right? I think they've been first class for a while, especially in the SaaS 2.0 era. For us at Qlik, it's really been a journey, right? And Michael talked about it, going all the way back to 2016 with the on-prem product and certainly with the cloud product today. The the important thing to note is things that you just talked about, like hypercubes and those sorts of things, the things that are very unique to Qlik. What becomes unique is what we can drive from an outcome perspective or a business value perspective to our customers. And what MCP and AI enables us to do at Qlik is we're not talking about hypercubes anymore. We're talking about the power of the associative engine
mhm,
in the context
Yep.
of the context and memory that it can provide to help your end users
yep,
get value from raw data all the way through to actionable insights.
yep,
And uh, and in some, and in some forms, now that you're using something like the MCP, automations now and workflow and that sort of thing can become part of the for lack of a better way of saying it, well, actually, it's the harness, right? That becomes part of the harness. There's talk of loops and all of these different things that you can do to orchestrate workflow
yep,
through the LLMs. You are are capable with this platform of building really extraordinary outcomes that other platforms can't match because of these things we used to talk about at a very deep technical level, and we
mhm,
don't really have to anymore. We as Qlik can now really focus on the outcomes, which is really, really exciting. Um,
yes. Yeah, and if if you're just the average person watching this, you have probably seen Qlik's messaging change a lot in this last year. And help you understand it's not about the platform. We don't use the term associative engine anymore. It's how this is helping you with AI. One of the things that I feel horrible, I was remiss as we were talking about APIs and then MCP. Michael, I'm assuming one of the things that I know about tools that MCP calls, that Claude is calling a tool in the MCP,
Hmm.
is the descriptions. I'm going to imagine that you spent quite a bit of time providing some really good descriptions for each of the tools. Is
Yeah,
that a good
that's
guess?
that is absolutely correct. And you can see it in the README on the GitHub project, which is it's just rm Terenzi / QSEOW dash MCP. It gives a pretty good documentation on the tools and what they
And so
do.
you even share the descriptions you put for the tools.
Oh yeah, yeah, and if that's not good enough, then I can't switch back, but
Spelled
you can just
everything correctly in it as well?
yeah, hold on. So if I were to go back to my LLM and ask it list me all the tools in the description after you've installed it, which is just npm-i install this project,
Okay.
it'll list everything out for you too.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's right there. And yeah, and while we were chatting, I created Dork Cast uh, QVF here has published it to my
Mhm.
everyone stream, and your revenue forecast is in Dalton. So I don't know
Dude,
if you
I'm
want to focus
rolling.
on
I'm
Americas.
rolling. I got a lot of them. It's time left. And it
But
looks like it used, normal click coloring for the bar charts for the comparison where it was looking at two measures. But
yeah,
green, dude, I'm not gonna lie, that green is kind of close to my bow tie color.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say the RGB for that is directly from your actual green that you use on the web because I
It,
told it I
I'm,
told it to
I'm
use.
looking at it right now because I still
Yeah.
have my PowerPoint up. It is looking right there.
So theming is a whole another thing. And what's so I don't know if you guys have ever tried to use LLM with the APIs to create visualizations before. I've done it a lot and I've not had a lot of success because I'll get back like blank white charts. It'll think that it's correct, but it's really not. And then you gotta, go finagle it for a long time. This has actually got built-in checks. So when it makes a visualization, it checks to make sure it's actually a visualization. So there's a good validation check in there to make sure that you're actually rendering.
Nice, nice,
Yep.
nice.
Yep.
And what you showed in the dashboard page, where you were just rendering into D3 visuals, right from the
Oh
data.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. This.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
something like that is super cool. And just shows it's not about just the visualizations that come with Qlik. Um,
It's the trusted data. You can
yeah,
do whatever you want with it. That's what it's all about, right?
I love
Uh,
it. And again, I love that idea of look at the metrics
yeah.
that are governed, provide an analysis of what the right chart type would be for it,
Hmm.
rather than asking them to type in questions.
Yeah. All you need is a good visualization library locally. I could literally go back to my LLM, tell it to take the Dork hypercubes out that we just manufactured in that app and create me a browser mashup, like
Mhm.
using this library instead. And I probably would have it in just a couple minutes.
I love it, man. Okay, buddy, if you want to go
Yep.
ahead and stop sharing your screen now, we
Yeah.
can kind of wrap this up just chatting. Michael, I so much appreciate your coming on, man. So when I saw context engineering and you said I'm doing something next week, dude, I was like leaning forward, like, when's he gonna post? I kept refreshing my LinkedIn like 24/7, Jeff. I was refreshing LinkedIn, looking. I saw your post that you created this. I appreciate your responding, saying, "Yeah, I'm happy to come on and show this."
Anytime.
Jeff,
Hey,
I
thanks for.
I appreciate with all the millions of hats, and if they go on your LinkedIn, they'll see you got a lot of hats, brother. Um, all the things you've got to do with your time that you were willing to come on, because I knew if I was sharing something, it was just me and Michael talking, Sue is probably going to have a little bit of nervousness that maybe this doesn't play well with security, which is why she may still be on-prem. And so having your level of understanding of what we do in building the security and the APIs, it was fantastic, dude. So
Well,
I
I
appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you for letting me crash because Michael was just like, "Yeah, I'm going on with Dalton tomorrow," and I'm like, "Oh, cool! You're doing a podcast? I love podcasts. I bought this mic and I never use it for podcasts, so I can get on a podcast." No, I appreciate you letting
No,
me crash and
no.
be part of the conversation because it's truly an exciting time, and you're right. Security is, one of the most important things right now, especially as, and this will be the future conversation. We're talking a lot about an MCP where you're still punching a lot into the keyboard,
Mhm.
but where we're moving to with agents that are going to act autonomously,
Yeah,
that we're going to, for good or ill, allow to take action on our behalf.
yeah,
The next piece of context that's going to be really important is explaining to the LLM when it's authorized to take action, when
mm,
it's not authorized to take action, when it's allowed to spend money on your behalf versus not spend money on
yeah,
your behalf. And that's, I think, another whole, different conversation that we can get into, but that people can derive outcomes this way now. just
Yep.
by having a conversation. It's truly fascinating and remarkable.
Absolutely. What's the one last thing you'd like to leave people's mind about context engineering, Jeff?
Context is everything. You said it at the beginning of the conversation, and it always has been. Most importantly now, details matter,
Hmm.
right? For folks like the three of us, we often get caught in these conversations where we jump in head first into the details, and we're like, well, the reason why this didn't work was because of this, that, and the other thing. Uh, we are being granted this wonderful opportunity.
Hmm.
I'll speak personally, to take a step back and think, all right, what's the backstory here? What's the narrative?
Yep.
What am I trying? What is it that a person needs to know that's going to settle them into the problem? It's the same for these LLMs. You've got to settle them into the problem. And I think, as Michael's pointed out and you've pointed out, reusability is really important, but you have to be really thoughtful about where your reusability comes from, because you do have all of these different concerns between cost, between memory management, between limiting hallucinations,
Hmm.
uh, that you have to be thoughtful about. And for a new generation of builders out there, that's somewhat new.
Yeah. How about you, Michael? Give me your last words, man.
Well, we covered a lot of ground. So again, thanks both of you guys for taking the time. It's my privilege and honor to be here. I think that, all right, so you go and you buy a board game, right? You can't just dump it out onto the table and expect to know how to play it, like Monopoly or Risk or Mousetrap, right? You can't go out and get a really fancy model airplane model and open it up and put it together, right? Without proper instructions and context. And so that's kind of the world we're living in right now. We've got very powerful tools. They can do a whole lot of things. You can't just dump it out onto the table and expect it to get you where you're going effectively. So yeah, give it a brain. Give it some context. Give it some good skills and tools and instructions. And if you can make that a repeatable human pattern, like make sure that yeah, it's part of your routine, you're going to have a lot better success with whatever you're doing with the LLMs and AI in general.
Nice. I'm actually going to leave you with something that's not very technical in nature. I'm going to say, as we look at these LLMs and as we look at MCP in general, and as we look at AI in general, there's an awful lot of fear that people have. The fundamental thing that I look at with hope is the fact that as Jeff learns to provide more context, as Michael learns to provide more context, that is going to make us better human beings in communication with others. Because just like we might, hey, I just want to know the answer. We do that in our real life communications with others as well. And I don't want to know a backstory. I don't want to hear what you think. There's only one possible answer. I don't want to hear why you're not giving me the one I want. And we lose relationships. We don't talk to family members. We cut ourselves off because we can't communicate context. And as we learn to do this for AI, because if you want to remain gainfully employed, as you mentioned, Jeff, I'm gainfully employed. That's a real thing these days that people fear that. To remain gainfully employed, you're going to have to learn how to communicate better and communicate the context in your head, not just start spouting off the first thing that came to your mind and forget the 30 minutes of thinking that you did before you about to jump on somebody. So put the time in order to secure your job. And my belief is that you're going to have a whole lot more happiness in your relationships as well. Folks,
Well said.
hope to,
Yeah.
thank you. Hope that everybody has a great day as always. I'm going to go back to my Data Cathedral here. I think I see a server that's getting a little bit slow right now. I'm going to jump on that. Hope that you all had a great, great day.